We are rapt to be joined at the Gettable desk by North Melbourne's recruiting boss, Will Thursfield, a man with plenty of decisions on his hands ahead of Wednesday night. Will, thanks for coming on Gettable.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming in, Will. What's the last couple of days been like for you?
Couple of last-minute interviews, but generally most of the work's been done. We sort of came together as a group 2.5 weeks ago and made most of our calls then, and out of that we hit the road and did a few last-minute catch-ups, but we're pretty much ready to rumble.
So, number 2 pick, who's falling into the trap? I've been calling it the thirst trap.
Yeah, you've been running this nickname for about a year, and I think this is the last roll of the dice, to be honest.
I reckon it's got something to it.
Yeah, we'll see. Clearly all the names you've been talking about are up there, and it'll be one of those guys. It's pretty exciting.
Just on the last-minute interviews, what do you guys as a club look for in those chats? Because obviously you know these guys so well as players. Is it a little bit of confirmation bias? Is that something you just want to tick off internally in your own mind? What's going sort of through the process at this point?
Most of these meetings were second meetings, and probably more just an opportunity to catch up with the parents and see what sort of background they're from. But yeah, we chip away at a lot of interviews throughout the year, so yeah, it's more just family stuff.
So much of what you do at Pick 2 is going to rely on, obviously, on what Richmond does at Pick 1. How many scenarios and outcomes do you plan for at Pick 1? Have you narrowed it down now to there's only 2 or 3 things that really they can do? Or how does it start and how does it get to the point where it's
it starts pretty broad, but now it's really 2 names. So yeah. we'll sit there and see what they do. They're going to get a very, very good player, and so are we.
So as a 77 former gamer at the footy club, do you get a special insight, and former recruiting member as well, do you get a special insight into what the Tigers are doing potentially?
No. Blair runs a pretty tight ship, as you well know. Not sure anyone really knows what they're up to, but yeah, wish them all the best. They've got a great hand. We
just had a bit of Finn O'Sullivan on the show there. Tell us about Finn's year and you know, his chances being in that mix, but also his development across this last couple of seasons. Yeah, he's a decorated junior, like star 16-year-old, All-Australian bottom major. Had some niggles this year, you know, with the fingers and whatnot, but still I thought by the end of the season he showed his quality. He's a terrific athlete. I think that's probably, you know, underpins his game. He can play anywhere on the ground. He's not a stats man, he's an impact man. Yep. So yeah, he's going to be able to play from next year, so he's pretty exciting. Just he obviously played that VFL game for Richmond. How much of a moment was that for you guys to look at him and as well as Jagger Smith and these other guys that were able to step up a level? No, it was good for Finn, given the fact he probably had a bit of an interrupted season up to that point, and there were a few questions being asked. Then he sort of came out and he showed his quality there, which was really pleasing. And also, and this is the case for other players too, Harvey Langford trained at Melbourne, is in that group potentially for them. Finn spent some time at the Roos earlier this year as part of the AFL Academy. How valuable can that time be to actually see them up close? Yeah, really. I mean, it's a totally different ball game playing against men. You know, they're powerful athletes, and just to see the way they interact at, you know, in drills and even just off the training track, just how they integrate with the group it's a really valuable thing and something that we'll look at closely. He's one we think is in the mix. Alex Tauru is another that's been linked pretty closely as well. Tell us about the Vikings' performances from your point of view. Great story, Alex. Like coming into the year, he probably wasn't all that known, and even after a month of footy, he showed bits and pieces. And then I reckon it was just pre-champs where he had a 2-week block where he had almost 30 intercept possessions, and it was just like, wow, like no one really does that. So from there, he played for Vic Country, found his feet, and then finished off really well. Played forward, showed he could do that. It's just his ability to compete, you know, in the air and on the ground, which is pretty rare for a guy of that size. We've spoken about Alex for some time throughout the year as someone that's got the potential. We haven't seen what his ceiling is this year. I mean, how much better could he be in an AFL system, do you think, and where are his growth areas? I'd say all parts of his game. I mean, a lot of these guys have trained, you know, for 3 or 4 years for this point. Alex has played country footy. He's raw-boned. He's got that athletic underpinning that, you know, will hold him in good stead. I think he can honestly just develop in every area. But his core fundamentals of competing and taking marks and winning the ball back is pretty special. Where do you think he could play at AFL level? I mean, we've seen at both ends this year in the same game sometimes. Where do you think he could? I'm not dodging the question. I genuinely think he could be both ends. Even in our department, guys have differing views, which it's pretty exciting. I mean, as a forward, he's going to be hard to play on, and as a defender, he's going to be hard to get past. Yeah. How do you weigh up, you know, having taken some midfielders in the past few years versus another guy who, you know, or a couple of midfielders in that group versus a tall option as well? Yeah, it's a real conundrum. I mean, last year we had 5 first rounders, and we were able to take 2 tall guys. So. They're sitting there developing in Will Dawson and Taylor Goad.
So we do have some tall guys coming through, but yeah, we're probably a little bit light on front of the ball, and Jack Darling's come in to help that. So it's something we may look at.
Pick 2's been on the table for some time, and it probably says a little bit about the draft pool in itself, that there hasn't been the huge rush for it as there has been in previous years. Could we still see a move on the night?
Potentially. I mean, I think it's been a little bit overstated, our willingness to move. Pick 2's a very, very good pick, and we're hoping it's a star player, so we're very happy just sitting there. But again, not ruling anything out.
What about the future first? I mean, we've spoken to Brady Rawlings throughout the trade period as well on our various shows, and he said the future first was going to be on the table and you're willing to be flexible with it. Is that still an option to move back into the draft?
Yeah. I mean, because of the guys we bought in during the trade period, we've got 2 and 62 at the moment, so to get something in between that'd be nice. Again, it'll come down to who's there, what's the cost of getting back in, all those things, but yeah, we'll be working the phones.
Do you have a point in the night where you would like to get back in? Is it do you highlight an area saying we want to be in this part of the draft?
No, I think it's more around who's going to be there,
okay.
As opposed to a number. Everyone will see it slightly differently. As we know, it's a very deep draft, so there'll be some appeal.
Is the appeal as well in like 3 years in a row of getting multiple first rounders? So obviously 2022 Harry and George, last year Colby and Zane, and obviously a player at pick 2, and then potentially another one, grabbing 6 over 3 years to really sort of expedite this.
Yeah, no, that's got great appeal. Got the 5 first rounders in last year. You mentioned Harry and George the year before. It's just bring a big group through and hopefully watch them grow.
Those 5 that you brought in last year, we saw a couple of them for long parts of the year, likes of Colby and Zane. They played some good footy throughout the season. Then some other guys like Riley Hardiman, obviously, and Taylor Goh that you mentioned there that came. Well, Taylor Goh didn't play any footy, but Will Dawson played some back half the year as well. How did you see their development throughout the season and with a year in the AFL system? Yeah,
they've all had ups and downs. Like they're young kids. Colby, as we can see there, he's taken to it pretty easily. He's a fair player. Zane, playing a tricky position, half forward, probably needs to put on a bit of weight. He had good moments, bad moments. And then the other 3, Riley was able to get some games. He developed pretty well in the VFL. Big shotgun Dawson, he's put on 13 kilos since last year, so he's still 18.
Yeah.
He was about 6 days off being in this draft, so he's come along well. And similarly with Goaty, he's come back in terrific condition. He's just going to take a bit of time, 208 centimetre ruck, but his athletic profile is pretty special.
Colby looked pretty special the other day too in returning to the track and winning the 2 kilometre time trial. Will we see a slightly different role for him next year, do you think?
We should do, given the fact Caleb Daniels come in to play that sort of general role down back. We'll hopefully see Colby play up the ground, a bit more half forward, a bit more wing and mid, where he can be pretty damaging going inside 50.
You've been doing this for a while now. The 2024 draft pool as a group, how do you sort of assess it amongst the other classes that we've seen come through in recent years?
I think it's just, it bats deeper. And there's probably 30 players you go, wow, we'd really love to have them. And the other thing too is there's positional versatility. You've got heaps of mids. You've got some really, really good talls. You've got small forwards, some rebounders. You can go and get what you want, really. So it's pretty exciting for everyone.
You've nominated River Stevens as a potential father-son. What's the situation there with him in terms of commitment? National draft, rookie draft, where does it sit?
There's been no commitment. It's probably just a wait and see how it unfolds. But Riv's had a pretty underrated year, I reckon. He plays a very team-first game. He's a half forward predominantly. He covers an enormous amount of ground. He's only light, but he has a real crack. He plays to win. I think he's going to develop well.
How's he compared to his old man? Obviously, Anthony's a pretty good player to the footy club.
Yeah, I think he's got a fair way to go, Riv. But he's made of the right stuff, River. He'll come in wherever he goes and train really hard and put his head down. He's a no-fuss sort of kid.
You touched on it a couple of times, but you brought in some experience throughout the trade period. Obviously, Caleb Daniel is a premiership player at the Western Bulldogs. Luke Parker is a premiership player at Sydney, and then Jack Darling, who's a premiership player at West Coast. I mean, how much does that add to a young group? And we mentioned before, you got 5 first rounders from last year. You can add another couple this year. But how does that aid and help develop a young group?
Oh, it helps not only on field. It helps in the gym. It helps in meetings. It's just these guys have been at the top of the mountain, and whatever they say is going to carry a bit of weight. So that's really exciting from that point of view. But they can also impact on field. They've all shown good form last year. We also added Jacob Constanti. Former top 20 pick. Things didn't quite go his way in Sydney, but we all sort of rated him in his draft year and hope he can add something
What do you think he can add? Because obviously that was one that came up late in the trade period, got done on deadline day. I mean, as you mentioned, he was a top 20 pick that had some really high raps as a small forward coming out of his draft year. What do you think he can add to that forward line?
Oh, he's a competitor, first and foremost. He's just, he sees the man and he gets after him. He probably needs to work on a few of his skill components, but he'll provide some pressure when he's fitting up and running.
How many picks do you end up using? You obviously got the 3 available. Do you think you use all them?
I would say so, yeah.
Yep.
Given the depth of the draft, we think there'll be some good options late.
Yep. And just before we let you go as well, obviously in your role this year, in tandem with Brady Roy, he's been doing more contract things as well. There's a big free agent at the footy club in Luke Davies-Uniacke next year. Any progress yet on where things sit for him? Obviously, we've seen some clubs start to lock away their free agents heading into 2025.
Oh, Lukey's got a massive decision to make, but what I will say is he's very, very happy at the club. He's coming off a BNF, his best ever year of footy. I think we just give him his space and he'll come to the right decision once he sees a good summer on the training track and possibly good start to the year. So I think that's trending well.
Hey, you're a repeat guest.
You are a repeat guest, so you don't leave empty-handed. That's a mug for you. We need you to also sign your photo to put on our Gettables board. So a little message on there. Feel free to chuck that on before we. I might just go get the board actually.
Where is the board?
Sorry, Will. I think it's at the front there.
Board down there.
I think. Where is it? I'm going to jump in front of the camera here. That's all right. That's
there it is. There it is.
Do you want to chuck it up, Will? Up there.
Chuck it up there, Will.
The trap.
Yeah, the trap. Let's see who gets in. Good man. Thanks for coming in and good luck on Wednesday night.
Good luck for the
Wednesday
week.
night with pick 2. It's going to be a massive selection for the North Melbourne Football Club.